I saw this thread the other day that was basically somebody asking whether or not they should start commissions or if anyone had any tips or advice for starting commissions. A lot of people in the comments were saying that they wanted to start commissions but were very scared. I definitely was super scared to start doing commission work. Now that I feel a little bit more comfortable doing commission work, I just kind of wanted to give my personal thoughts on the pros and cons, and then also some tips for if you are starting commissions, some advice that I think would be helpful if you are really nervous about starting commissions. So just some quick background lore or whatever. I only started doing commissions more seriously in the last 6 months or so. I did do some commissions in high school, but that was mostly people I knew from Facebook. So to me, that's a little bit different. But in the last 6 months or so, I've actually started taking on literal actual commission work. I am by no means an expert on commissions, but I do feel like I have enough experience at this point to just sort of give some advice if you have never done commissions and you are thinking about it. So yeah, I'm gonna start with some pros and cons. So if you are thinking about doing commissions, I think this will kind of help you decide if commission work might be right for you, because I don't actually think commissions are good for every artist. So the first pro that I have is kind of obvious, is just it's a way to earn extra income for yourself. So obviously this will vary based on how much you charge for your commission work, but you can earn a pretty good chunk of income from commission. Since I've started doing commission work, most months commissions make up the majority of the income that I make from my art online. So it's definitely nothing to sneeze at or whatever. Another pro that I have is it definitely gives you industry experience. So for me personally, one thing that I feel like I never really did when I was first getting started kind of sharing my art online is I never really sat down and decided what kind of artist I wanted to be. In the last year or so, I've really honed in on wanting to do book cover illustrations or working with companies creating character illustrations, something along that sort of line. And part of the reason why I finally decided to start doing commission work, because I felt like doing even personal commissions gives you that sort of experience that you need to start working with companies and brands. Because if you think of personal commissions kind of as working with a client or a business or a brand, it kind of helps give you some experience. That way, if you want to work with companies in the future, you kind of already have that mindset of, this is just another client and I'm just doing things that I would already be doing for a brand in the future, like responding to emails or meeting deadlines or going back and forth in the creative process with the client. So these are things that you can kind of practice with personal commissions, and hopefully whenever you start to work with bigger brands and businesses, this kind of gives you some experience in how to handle those situations. Another big pro of doing commission work is improving your art. There were a ton of people in that threads comment section talking about how people who had done commission work before were saying that it definitely helped them improve their art. There were also people who had never done commission work who were saying they wanted to do commission work, but they felt like they needed to improve first. And I definitely think that doing commission work will help you improve your art. It really forces you to work outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes this is good and bad. I'll put an example on screen of a commission that I just finished. And this was a commission that I did for D&D characters. It was set in the, I think, 1800s, and it was fantasy western. Really cool. I absolutely loved the client. They just had so many cool ideas and they were so funny. So the client gave me all kinds of backstory and also told me about this really cool weapon that they wanted their character to have. And so they were explaining some of the mechanics of how it worked. And as I was kind of doing the commission, it felt a lot like concept art to me. I have never really done concept art before like this, for a commission like this. So it was definitely out of my comfort zone. I don't really draw guns very much, so that was new for me. I have never drawn cowboy characters before. And the gun, I ended up having to kind of go back and forth with the client a little bit just to kind of fully make sure that I was understanding what they were looking for. And ultimately, I'm super happy with how that turned out. And they were really happy with how it turned out. It was very intimidating throughout the process, trying to make sure that I am giving the client what they want, but also having to step out of my comfort zone and draw and paint stuff that I have never drawn or painted before. So I think that's a really good example of you're gonna have to draw and paint things that you might not necessarily be comfortable drawing or painting. That's just like part of commission work. Like that's just how it is. I do think this is a good thing. Like I do think it's good that you are being forced to draw things that you don't normally draw. It's gonna help you improve as an artist. And the more that you do these things, the more comfortable you're gonna get with painting different and unique stuff for commissions. Even just like in your own artwork, in general, you're just going to improve because the more paintings and drawings that you do, you're just naturally going to improve your skill. Another pro is if you ever feel like you kind of get in a rut with drawing, like you're always drawing the same thing over and over again, commission work is going to help you out because you're going to draw so many different things. As soon as I finished up that fantasy western cowboy D&D commission, I also drew a siren for a book that's coming out for an independent author. The scale of like what you draw definitely vary, which is good. Like I do think that's a pro because there's always going to be something different. And I think that's kind of the appeal of being an illustrator or just selling work as an artist is it's never really going to be boring because there's always going to be different stuff to do each day. So those are my pros for doing commission work. Some of the cons, because there are cons to doing commissions. One of the cons that I wrote down was that you can't draw what you want. This kind of goes with the you're going to draw things that are out of your comfort zone. Again, that can be good, but that's also not always fun for you personally. Whenever you're doing commission work, you're not always going to have the time or motivation to draw what you want. So you're kind of at the mercy of what the people commissioning you are asking you to draw. Obviously, you can sort of work around your schedule and draw things on your own time. I tend to find that by the end of the day, after doing commissions all day, I'm usually tired of looking at my iPad, like my eyes are burning and also my wrist is hurting. I'm literally having to like wear my wrist brace because I'm 28. So like I'm a little old lady. It's bad. But again, you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of commission work. When I do commissions, I want to get through them as quickly as possible because in my mind, I don't want to keep the person who commissioned me waiting on their artwork. I'm always like worried. So like I try to get them done as quick as possible. But I do know that there are artists who take months to finish a commission. And that's just not me. Like I just can't do it. But if you take longer with your commission work, then you could take breaks in between and work on your own stuff. It just kind of depends on your motivation level at that point. I still put that as a con because just depending on how you work and how you feel after drawing all day, that can kind of be a factor. Another con that I put was deadlines. This has not been a big deal for me personally. I do think that there are people who don't do well with a deadline. Like if you feel it looming over you, that can be a little intimidating. Usually for personal commissions, I feel like most people are like, I don't have a deadline or whatever. I usually have deadlines with like indie authors because if they are releasing a book by a certain time, they usually want the character art, or if they want like a book cover, obviously they want the book cover done by a certain time before the book releases. That's where you run into having to work on a deadline. Usually if the deadline is far enough out, I personally don't really struggle with that. But if you're one of those people who really feels the deadline looming over you, that's just something to think about because with commissions, depending on who's commissioning it, you might end up with having deadlines and things that you have to hit by a certain point. And that can be a little intimidating at times. So I think that's kind of my pros and cons for doing commission work. So I want to share a couple of tips that I think personally helped me with starting commissions because if you're thinking about doing commissions and you're like, oh, I'm so scared, like I don't want to do it, I was right there with you. Like I totally know how you feel. I think what really helped me the most, number one, I kind of talked about this earlier, but kind of figure out what you want to do as an artist. And if you kind of have an idea of, you want to work with brands and businesses and companies and stuff one day, I really think that doing commission work is going to help you learn how to handle deadlines, how to email clients, how to work through the creative process with another person. Because as an artist, usually if you're just creating artwork for you, you're not having to stop after a sketch and get it approved by somebody before you continue, or do like different color variations for an artwork before you send it out to get those colors approved and then use that color palette for your artwork. So it's a little bit different. So I do think that's the sort of thing that you want to do one day of working with businesses and clients. I really think doing commission work is a really good starting point. Yes, it's nice to earn the extra income, but I also think that just getting that experience of working in this specific section of the industry is really, really helpful. So if you are really worried about doing commission work, one thing that I will say, and I don't mean this to discourage you or anything, I'm gonna share my personal experience, and maybe this makes you feel better or worse, I don't know. But when I first put out my little post on Instagram saying that I was gonna be taking commissions, first of all, I didn't get anybody for maybe a week reach out about doing commission work. Literally, like crickets. I was super, super worried that I was gonna be like overwhelmed and it was gonna be too much and there was gonna be 10 people who like all wanted to commission all at once and blah, blah, blah. And it was literally the opposite. I was like, oh, okay, nobody wants to commission me. That's fine. But I actually think this worked out better because after that first week, I finally had one person commission me. And I did that commission, and then almost as soon as I got done with that commission, the second person commissioned me. It kind of worked out better, I think, than what I was anticipating. I was anticipating like the floodgates and so many people, and not because I thought I was that good. Honestly, I thought it was going to happen that way just because that would overwhelm me. Like, that's why I thought that was what was going to happen, because I was like, worst case scenario is a jillion people try to message me about it all at the same time, and then I'm overwhelmed and having to figure it out. So it wasn't really like, oh, I'm not good and, you know, I'm just gonna get a million people. No, it was literally, I was like, a bunch of people are gonna message me about it all at once and then I'm gonna be stressed out. So that was like my worry. And then it ended up being the opposite, where literally nobody messaged me for like a week. And then I finally got one person, and then it just sort of slowly snowballed. And I tell you that because if you are worried that you're gonna get overwhelmed by a ton of people trying to message you, this is just my experience, but I can tell you, like, it's probably not gonna happen that way. Like, you will probably have a similar experience to me where it's like, you'll get like one or two at first, and then it can slowly sort of snowball and continue from there. Hopefully. Because when you're brand new to commissions, it's gonna be a lot of figuring things out and figuring out like how to stay organized in your process. And that can be like really overwhelming when you're just starting out. Hopefully that's kind of how it goes for you. That's how it went for me personally. Again, I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse. I don't know. I don't know if you're wanting a million people to like message you on day one, but if you are, you know, I hope that happens for you. I just know for me personally, it was a slow, gradual increase in people asking for commissions. So I hope that that helps you a little bit. Another thing that I feel like people seem to be nervous about with commissions is that they feel like their art isn't good enough. So I have a video on here about my commission process, like literally how I go about doing my commissions, like my general process. And I think in that video I talked about you kind of have to be objective with yourself and your artwork and decide if you're at a level where people are willing to buy from you. Because if you're not, then I personally think your time is better spent improving your art until you are to that level. It does not mean your art has to be on this godly tier level, you know? It doesn't have to be like that great. You can be like at a just like good level and still get commission work. To kind of show you an example, I'll show you what my artwork looked like around the time where I first started doing commissions, and I'll also show you what my artwork looks like now. I do feel like I've had more and more people message me about commissions than I did when I first started taking commissions. So I do think your skill level is going to help you with getting more and more clients. But I do think you can get commission work even if your art is not at like the most top tier level possible. I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, well, my art just isn't good enough. Personally, I think it really comes down to your art, but also your audience. If your audience is so connected to you and like honed in and focused on you and your art journey, you might get commission work anyway. Like, even if you feel like your art is not really at like this good level, if you have an engaged audience who wants to support you, you might still get commission work. Like, it really depends on your audience and your art level, I feel like. If you are thinking about doing commissions and you feel like your art is just like not good enough, you might try it anyway. Like, there's no harm in putting a post on Instagram saying, hey, I'm taking commissions, and seeing what happens. Like, you never know truly like how people are going to respond. I don't think you should let people on the internet, including myself, tell you like whether or not you should start. It really comes down to just trying it yourself and seeing how it goes. Personally, I would wait until you feel like you are at that sort of good intermediate range in your art skill. Even if you feel like you're not there yet, you might still try it and see what happens. If that's the only thing that's really holding you back is just thinking that your art is not like at the skill it needs to be yet, but you feel like people would be willing to buy from you right now, the worst thing that's going to happen is nobody responds. And then you kind of have your answer of, okay, I need to continue to focus on improving. Or marketing. Like sometimes it could be a marketing thing. If you have a very small amount of subscribers, maybe you work on increasing your subscriber count for a little bit and marketing yourself, and then trying commissions again in a couple months. It's a lot of trial and error, I think, but I do think it is worth it. Obviously the income from commission work, but honestly the experience. Like I think the experience will really help you with your confidence level. And then whenever you do reach out to brands and talk about collaboration opportunities and things, you kind of have that experience of reaching out to people and emailing and deadlines and all of these things. I think it really goes a long way in just helping your confidence level. Honestly, I feel like that has been the biggest benefit of doing commissions for me personally. Like I've already started kind of working with independent authors and getting to do character art and book cover art. And so that's been really, really cool and really, really exciting. So yeah, like that's what I want to do as an artist. So yeah, commission work has kind of started me in the direction of artwork that I want to make and where I want to go. So yeah, if you are scared to do commission work, I promise it is very daunting. Like I'm right there with you, but I do feel like the more that you do it, the easier it gets for sure. If you have any questions about commissions or want to know more about my process, I do have a video of my commission, like step by step how I go about doing commissions. So if you are thinking about starting commissions, you might check that video out. You can also check out my Patreon. I share a ton of tutorials and sketches and things over there. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!